Hare Krishna, my Dandavat pranams, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. So today is Monday, the 7th of July, 2025, Dwadasi, and Guru Purnima is coming up, I think, on Friday. Yes, Friday. Guru Purnima, I think, yeah. But very soon, so Thursday. So big festivals at the moment here, millions of people. Okay, so we're continuing reading our Caitanya Caritamrta, and we've reached the 7th chapter. So we'll continue reading. Agyan timirandasya gyananjala shalakaya chakshu unmilitam jena tasmai shri guruve namaha guruve gaurachandraya radhikaya tadalaye krishnaya krishna bhaktaya tara bhaktaya namo namaha. Shri Caitanya Manobishtam Shtapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Priya Sarupe, Daita Sarupe, Prema Sarupe, Sahajavi Rupe, Nijana Rupe, Prabhueka Rupe, Tana Rupe, Swavalasa Rupe Anapita Chirim Chirat Kuruna Varatino Kalo Samarapayatam Unnata Ujvala Rasam Swabhakti Shriyam Hari Purata Sundarata Tikatam Vasudipita Sada Pradare Kandare Spuratu Vasachinandanaha Yam Prabhajantamana Petyam Apeti Krityam Dvaipaino Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putre Titam Matayo Taravo Vinedustam Sarvabhutam Hridim Mulimanatoshmi Bhaktya Vihina Aparada Lakshay Shiptascha Karma Ditarangamadye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapana Prinde Namaste Charanarabindam Bhajami Radham Aravinda Netram Smarami Radham Madhurashmitasyam Vadami Radham Karuna Baradram Tato Mamanasti Katina Kapi Tavaivasmi Najivani Tvayina Iti Vignaya Radhe Tvam Naimam Charnatikam. So this chapter is titled Lord Chaitanya in 5 features. So we've been through the spiritual master, his external and internal reasons for coming, Mahaprabhu. We've described his greatest commander, Nityananda, and all the tattva that goes with Nityananda. And we've described Advaita Acharya, Vishnu tattvas. And now we're describing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in 5 features. I was just reading today one circular came around. It said that Prabhupada had said that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement is greater than Mahaprabhu himself. Mahaprabhu saved 2 Jagai and Madais. This movement is saving thousands and thousands and thousands of Jagai and Madais. So it's true. So this movement embodies the potency of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appears more than 500 years ago, but the potency that he bequeaths to the world remains intact. And it's that potency that we are relishing, and it's that potency that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is describing in Mahaprabhu in these 5 features. Mahaprabhu, Nityananda, Advaita Acharya, Gadadhar Pandit, and Srivas Thakur. So this is the potency, and it's funneling through time, so to speak, to manifest at this very moment in time, probably, as I've said before, stronger than it's ever been before, because we do have the internet. We have all these facilities. So many books have been distributed. So many people have an opportunity to come to Krishna consciousness, but still many will try and evade Krishna consciousness, which is what we've been describing here, how the Mayavads, and it was described a number of people, Mayavads, Sunyavads, where was that list? We had Pasandis, Kutikaras, Nindakas, Pasandis, Adharma, Paduyas, all try to avoid different types of impersonalists. So Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada is very kindly explaining all these different personalities who tried to avoid Mahaprabhu's mercy. So the last verse we had was about the Mayavads, different types of Mayavads. There was a Saranartha Mayavads in Varanasi, and the Kastira Mayavads. And we described these two different types of Mayavadis. So, but basically anyone who's not submissive to Krishna ultimately is a Mayavad. And there are hardcore Mayavads who consider themselves ultimately to be that supreme controller, which is basically the philosophy of Sankaracharya. He's preaching Aham Tvam Asi, I am that one. Because in a very subtle sense, we are the same embodiment of potency as Krishna. We are Satchitananda. We have that particle. That Anuchit is there within us. So if that was focused on exclusively, you could come to the conclusion, yes, you are God. This is like the Buddhistic philosophy. And that God consciousness is in the Brahmajyoti as nirvana or shantaras. So that's the destination that the Mayavadis are actually focusing on. That's what they're trying to attain, that shantaras. But we'll explain more. So we've come to text 40 today. 39.
Yeah.
No, we read 39. 39 was a huge purport.
No,
And the one before was
All about the Varanasi, the different Mayavadis.
no, but actually we didn't read. I was just checking that. I couldn't find now. It's in the 39.
I'm marked at 39 also.
Huh?
She has also marked at
But
39.
I don't remember you talking about the different Mayavadis.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we'll go over 39. Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Tave Nija Bhakta Koile Yatam Lecha Adi Sabe Adi-lila Matra Kashira Mayavadi. Translation. All were converted into devotees of Lord Chaitanya, even the Malechas and Yavanas. Only the impersonal followers of Sankaracharya evaded him. Sankaracharya, very powerful preacher. And it's still prevalent today in India, very much so. So purport. In this verse, it is clearly indicated that although Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu converted Muslims and other Malechas into devotees, the impersonalist followers of Sankaracharya could not be converted. After accepting the renounced order of life, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu converted many karmanishtas who were addicted to fruitive activities, many great logicians like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, nindakas, blasphemers like Prakasananda Saraswati, pasandis, non-devotees like Jagai and Madai, and adharma paduryas, degraded students like Mukunda and his friends. All of them gradually became devotees of the Lord. Even the Patanas, how do you say that word? Patanas, Muslims, but the worst offenders, Patanas, but the worst offenders, the impersonalists, were extremely difficult to convert, for they very tactfully escaped the devices of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In describing the Kashira Mayavadis, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati has explained that persons who are bewildered by empiric knowledge or direct sensual perception, and who thus consider that even this limited material world can be gauged by their material estimations, conclude that anything that one can discern by direct sense perception is but maya or illusion. This is what the impersonalist considers. Anything that you can say, anything that you can see, we said this the other day. Anything that you can see is maya, because they are looking to, they're impersonalists, so they don't consider any variety or variegatedness in the world. They consider that it's all false. This is what they consider. And they want to leave the world completely, and everything within the world, they consider Maya. And they want to go to the impersonal Brahman, where there's nothing. It's the same as Nirvana. This Sankaracharya is called covered Buddhism. It's the same. So they consider that everything in the material world is Maya. Anything is Maya because it has personal connection. You understand? It's tragic. They maintain that although the absolute truth is beyond the range of sense perception, yes, because they only know the limits of their senses, it includes no spiritual variety or enjoyment. As soon as that mood of pleasure comes, they think, oh, that is Maya. They don't appreciate even a little bit the pleasure of devotional activities. Just like now we see so many millions of people here having like festival of Giriraj Govardhan, festival to celebrate Ekadashi. So many millions of people, and this variety is there. These are personalists. And in contrast to that, the impersonalist, he doesn't want to know about any of that, doesn't have faith in that.
YouTube has stopped. Is it?
No, it's going. According to the Kashiri Mayavadis, the spiritual world is simply void, because actually, ultimately, they don't have the courage to accept the variety within ourselves, our own personal natures. It requires ultimately courage to accept that sense of personal variety, etc., within ourselves. It's very easy just to annihilate the self completely. It's easier almost to do that. It's very negative. And in Kali Yuga in particular, where the whole atmosphere is degenerated and negative all around, then many will go that direction. Just think, well, I've had enough. I'm just going to go into the Brahman. So many think like that. They do not believe in the personality of the absolute truth or his varieties of activities in the spiritual world. If they can't believe the personal conclusion, then they can't accept a personal, because they don't accept a personal God, they can't accept that personal aspect about themselves. They just have to annihilate themselves. It's spiritual suicide. Ultimately, that's what it is. My Gurudev used to describe, like, if you have a frying pan with chickpeas in it and you cook it, those chickpeas can never sprout again. They're finished. So this is what happens if we set our target for the Brahmajyoti. They do not believe in the personality of the Absolute Truth or his varieties of activities in the spiritual world. Although they have their own arguments, which are not very strong, they have no conception of the variegated activities of the Absolute Truth. They don't believe it. It's saying in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, Krishna relishes those festivals glorifying him in his name, like Rath Yatra, for example. Krishna himself relishes this. He relishes the performances of Ekadashi. He relishes this. Krishna himself. These are varieties. These impersonalists, who are followers of Sankaracharya, are generally known as Kashira Mayavadis, impersonalists residing in Varanasi. Near Varanasi, there is another group of impersonalists who are known as Sarnata Mayavads. Outside the city of Varanasi is a place known as Sarnata, where there is a big Buddhist stup. Many followers of Buddhist philosophy live there, and they are known as Sarnata Mayavadis. The impersonalists of Sarnata differ from those of Varanasi, for the Varanasi impersonalists propagate the idea that the impersonal Brahman is truth, whereas material varieties are false. But the Sarnata impersonalists do not even believe that the absolute truth do not even believe that the absolute truth or Brahman can be understood as the opposite of Maya or illusion. According to their vision, materialism is the only manifestation of the absolute truth. Factually, both the Kashira and Saranata Mayavadis, as well as any other philosophers who have no knowledge of the spirit soul, are advocates of utter materialism. Yes, they have some degree of faith in the material objects. None of them have clear knowledge regarding the absolute or the spiritual world. This is why we're reading Caitanya Caritamrta, because it gives us clearly all these tattvas and siddhantas. They are there. Philosophers like the Saranata Mayavadis, who do not believe in the spiritual existence of the absolute truth, but consider material varieties to be everything, do not believe that there are two kinds of nature, inferior material and superior spiritual, as described in the Bhagavad Gita. Actually, neither the Varnasi nor Saranata Mayavadis accept the principles of the Bhagavad Gita due to their poor fund of knowledge. It's all ignorance. It culminates in ignorance that people will go this route because they have not come into contact with the philosophy of personalism. If you elude Mahaprabhu's net and don't get a book, for example, you can be in the bliss of ignorance for your whole life and the next life, and eternally in a sense, because you can go into the Brahman, and if you go into the Brahman, there's no coming back, unless one great sadhu like Narada Rishi comes through the celestial airwaves and the atoms from his lotus feet might reignite your desire for love, because that's the principal desire that gets crushed. If there's no object, then there's nothing to love. This is impersonalism. There's no object. So how can you love? How can you develop a relationship with blank space? What you develop is a shantaras, a type of shantaras, where there's nothing. Now, sochati na kanchati, no hankering, no lamentation, nothing. And that's considered, it's like the bliss of ignorance, you can say. From our perspective, it's the bliss of ignorance. So they choose that road. Since these impersonalists who do not have perfect spiritual knowledge cannot understand the principles of bhakti yoga, they must be classified among the non-devotees who are against the Krishna consciousness movement. We sometimes feel inconvenienced by the hindrances offered by these impersonalists, but we do not care about their so-called philosophy, for we are propagating our own philosophy as presented in Bhagavad Gita as it is, and getting successful results. Theorizing as if devotional service was subject to their mental speculations, both kinds of Mayavadi impersonalists, the two that we've discussed, conclude that the subject matter of bhakti yoga is a creation of Maya, and that Krishna, devotional service, and the devotee are also Maya. Therefore, it is stated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Mayavadi Krishne Aparadi. All the Mayavadis are offenders to Lord Krishna. This is Adi-lila 7.39. It is not possible for them to understand the Krishna consciousness movement. Therefore, we do not value their philosophical conclusions. However expert such quarrelsome impersonalists are in putting forward their so-called logic, we defeat them in every respect and go forward with our Krishna consciousness movement. Their imaginative mental speculation cannot deter the progress of the Krishna consciousness movement, which is completely spiritual and is never under the control of such Mayavadis. I can remember many years ago in Rishikesh, before I took this sannyas vesh, I was walking and I met one apparent sadhu, and he took me to his ashram. We had a conversation, and he could see that I just wasn't stupid. And he took me to his ashram, and in front of maybe 60 or 70 people, many Westerners were there, that he had pulled into his impersonal conception. He sat me down in the front, and with matchsticks began to make a diagram of the actual Brahman and what is our focus and where we are going and everything like this. And at the very end of his talk, he was trying to demonstrate how smart he was in front of all these other foreigners, that he could defeat me. This was his whole objective, to shore himself up, but in a nice way. There was nothing aggressive, but this was his motive. And at the end of everything that he was speaking, I just said to him, this is all very interesting, but where is the quality of love in everything that you've just, where to demonstrate? And he couldn't answer. Because for love, there has to be two. There has to be a subject and an object. So there was no object in his philosophy. It was just like the void. And he became quite disturbed. He couldn't answer. And all the people, the Westerners, they were all listening very closely. And they could see that he didn't know about love. So, anyway, a few minutes later I just left. I didn't press it particularly at that time. But some of those people sitting there, they also left with me. They came out because the ingredient of love. So many of these impersonals, they can explain fancy words and so on, and the Brahman and different conjections. What's that? Tamasmi, yes. And these different phrases. But the embodiment of love, which is what the heart is crying for, only this. If that can't be brought out, what does bhakti mean? Bhakti means devotional service. Service is the symptom of love, the love to the Lord. So if that is not included in your philosophy, then what have you got left? You've got just an empty shell. There's nothing at the end. So it's very simple to actually. I wasn't versed in so many things. I hadn't. I don't think I was with Srila Rai Maharaj, but it probably was in 94, 95, something like that. Even before. Their imaginative mental speculation cannot deter the progress of the Krishna consciousness movement, which is completely spiritual and is never under the control of such Mayavadis. So we should not be intimidated ever. There always has to be a subject and an object. There has to be the consideration of attraction. And the attraction is demonstrated, or love is brought out by service, devotional service. If that's not there and available, then how can the living entity be satisfied with that? Text 40. Vrindavana yate Prabhu rahila kasite Mayavari Caritamrta Adi-lila nindite. Translation. While Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was passing through Varanasi on his way to Vrindavan, the Mayavadi sannyasi philosophers blasphemed against him in many ways. Purport. While preaching Krishna consciousness with full vigor, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu faced many Mayavadi philosophers. Similarly, we are also facing opposing swamis, yogis, impersonalists, scientists, philosophers, and other mental speculators. And by the grace of Lord Krishna, we successfully defeat all of them without any difficulty. Because this crux, if someone is going to be true, and most of them are not true, most of them are just trying to maintain face in the external world, so to speak. But if they're actually sincere, and they're seeking that love, then they will be defeated happily by a sadhu. Because everyone wants love, even an ant, anybody. It's that requirement. So to cultivate this path of bhakti is only about that, loving service. Text 41. Sannyasi hoye kare gananya nachana nakare Vedanta pata karya sankirtana. Translation: the blasphemer said, although a sannyasi, he does not take interest in the study of Vedanta, but instead always engages in chanting and dancing in Sankirtan. Purport: fortunately or unfortunately, we also meet such Mayavadis who criticize our method of chanting and accuse us of not being interested in study. They do not know that we have translated volumes and volumes of books into English, and that the students in our temples regularly study them in the morning, afternoon, and evening. We are writing and printing books, and our students study them and distribute them all over the world. No Mayavadi school can present as many books as we have. Nevertheless, they accuse us of not being fond of study. It has no basis, you see. It's pure envy. Understand what pure envy means. It means you have something better than me, so I don't like you. This is basically what envious is. No Mayavadi school can present as many books as we have. Nevertheless, they accuse us of not being fond of study. Such accusations are completely false. But although we study, we do not study the nonsense of the Mayavadis. You see, we don't study the empiric philosophical conceptions in this material. It's called Bhautik Gyan, which is the material Gyan, which you get in universities, etc., libraries, which is all very interesting to a degree, but if the conclusion isn't going to be focused on developing my personal sambandha, my relationship with the Lord, what is its fruit? What is its value? What will happen is you'll just become proud of your material knowledge. I've known even devotees like this. They've actually studied so many things, and they harbor a sort of arrogance internally with their so-called empiric knowledge or knowledge of matter. Useless if it doesn't lead to Krishna. Mayavadi sannyasis neither chant nor dance. They can't. Their technical objection is that this method of chanting and dancing is called Turatrika, which indicates that a sannyasi should completely avoid such activities and engage his time in the study of Vedanta. Actually, such men do not understand what is meant by Vedanta. In Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Krishna says, Vedascha sarvya aham eva vedyo vedanti krit veda vid eva kaham. By all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta. I am the knower of the Vedas. You see how far away the Mayavadis are? They're so illusioned. And with that illusion, they become very proud. It's the pride that can't be broken through to catch them. Lord Krishna is the actual compiler of Vedanta, and whatever he speaks is Vedanta philosophy. Although they are lacking in knowledge of Vedanta presented by the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the transcendental form of Srimad Bhagavatam, the Mayavadis are very proud of their study, foreseeing the bad effects of their presenting Vedanta philosophy in a perverted way. Srila Vyasadeva compiled Srimad Bhagavatam as a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. Srimad Bhagavatam is Bhasyayam Brahma Sutranam. In other words, all the Vedanta philosophy in the aphorisms of the Brahma Sutra is thoroughly described in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. Thus, the factual propounder of Vedanta philosophy is a Krishna-conscious person who always engages in reading and understanding the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and teaching the purport of these books to the entire world. The Mayavadis are very proud of having monopolized the Vedanta philosophy, but devotees have their own commentaries on Vedanta, such as Srimad Bhagavatam, and others written by the Acharyas. The commentary of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas is the Govinda Bhasya. So we know the story, the pastime of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who is actually like Brihaspati in the Swagaloka, so knowledgeable Brihaspati, of course, is Brahman realized. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya is like Brahman realized. But Mahaprabhu dismantled all of his teachings very simply. He listened patiently for 7 days. This is a beautiful chapter itself described in the Madhya Lila. I'm not sure which chapter it is, but we'll come to it. But Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he speaks his own understanding of the Vedanta with the impersonal conception of coming into the Brahman. For 7 days to Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu listens, doesn't say anything. It was actually in the courtyard of Jagannath Puri Mandir, in the courtyard there. And all Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's students are there. And Mahaprabhu is just listening patiently. And at the end, after 7 days, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya says, "You've listened now, but you've made no comment, you haven't said anything. How can I know if you've been understanding anything?" And Mahaprabhu says, "Well, I understand Vedanta very well, and you haven't described it at all." And Sarvabhauma is completely shocked, because he's like the number one, scholar, Mayavad, in Puri itself. And here this young sannyasi is completely contradicting him. But then he does it so nicely, and then unpacks it and explains it. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, because he's very intelligent, he gets it. And because of the mercy of Mahaprabhu, he understands. And he becomes Mahaprabhu's greatest exponent and supporter. So we've come to this pastime. Because defeating Mayavadism is very, very important. Because that's the opposition, so to speak, to Krishna consciousness. It's very rampant. Even though people don't speak it vocally, they don't even know they're Mayavadis. But they have their sights set on liberation. Liberation from this material. This material world is so much suffering. Let me just get out of here. Let me go into that Brahman. So even devotees have this. Very often we come to devotional service so that we will get a better understanding of liberation. That's why we come. But then after some time, the beauty and speciality of Brajendranandan, Shyam Sundar, and all the Braja Gopis takes precedence and overtakes that Mayavad conception. The Mayavadi's accusation that devotees do not study Vedanta is false. The Mayavadis do not know that chanting, dancing and preaching the principles of Srimad Bhagavatam is called Bhagavat Dharma, and the same as studying Vedanta, since they think that reading Vedanta philosophy is the only function of a sannyasi, and they did not find Chaitanya Mahaprabhu engaged in such direct study, they criticize the Lord. Now in Jayavadama, Sannyasi Thakur was the same. He's coming from a Brahmagyan school. It's exactly the same, this Sankaracharya mentality. And this is a beautiful example of his breakdown, so to speak, when he sees a devotee weeping, slipping, chanting Hare Krishna in Sankirtan, and he realizes he can see this devotee is getting 1,000 times more bliss than I've ever come to. He sees that directly, and that one example changes his heart. Sripad Sankaracharya has given special stress to the study of Vedanta philosophy. Vedanta Vakyesha Sada Ramanta Kopinavantaha Kalo Bhagyavantaha. A sannyasi accepting the renounced order very strictly and wearing nothing more than a loincloth should always enjoy the philosophical statements of the Vedanta Sutra. Such a person in the renounced order is to be considered very fortunate. That's what the meaning of that verse was. The Mayavadis in Varanasi blasphemed Lord Chaitanya because his behavior did not follow these principles. Lord Chaitanya, however, bestowed his mercy upon these Mayavadi sannyasis and delivered them by means of his Vedanta discourses with Prakashananda Saraswati and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So understand the history. Mahaprabhu has only just advented. He's only just beginning his preaching mission, so to speak. He's been cultivating the knowledge as Nimai Pandit in Navadvip for 24 years. And now he's just coming out to distribute his message. In Navadvip, he's relishing a sweetness of that mood of Shamras, of Krishna, and his relationships with all the Navadvipvasis, like in Vrindavan. But now he's come out. So how else could Prakashananda Saraswati have got knowledge of the personal form of the Lord? Because all across India practically, there was Madhvacharya propounding this, Ramanujacharya, Nimbaditya also, but it wasn't popularized particularly. Madhvacharya, he established the Gopal Murti, deity worship, but it hadn't gained much traction. So understand that history. So Prakashananda Saraswati, he's never heard what Mahaprabhu has come to give. Text 42. Murka sanyasi nirja dharma nahi jane bavuka ha hiya pale bavukera sane. This Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is an illiterate sannyasi and therefore does not know his real function. Guided only by his sentiments, he wanders about in the company of other sentimentalists. Purport. Foolish Mayavadis, not knowing that the Krishna consciousness movement is based on a solid philosophy of transcendental science, superficially conclude that those who dance and chant do not have philosophical knowledge. How many people are like that? When they see the devotees chanting in the streets and so on, they'll be thinking, oh, why are they just doing like that? They'll be thinking like that. I mean, intelligent people will be thinking like that. If they haven't had a book to read about Krishna consciousness, they'll be putting it down. They'll be thinking, why are they just doing that? Why aren't they actually studying? It's a natural thing to think like that. That's why they have to be educated. That's why, the devotees themselves, we are the servants of Mahaprabhu. Our duty in life is to educate the masses, the public, on these precepts. Those who are Krishna conscious actually have full knowledge of the essence of Vedanta philosophy, for they study the real commentary on the Vedanta philosophy, Srimad Bhagavatam, and follow the actual words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as found in Bhagavad Gita as it is. Prabhupada is always saying as it is. There's a huge difference between the Mayavad Bhagavad Gitas, and there are many of them. And I've described before, for example, they'll describe in the first chapter the 5 Pandavas represent the 5 senses. They'll take the personalities of the 5 Pandavas and throw them away and say, no, this is just referring to the 5 senses. So you have no personal aspect in there. There's no space for attraction. There's no space for sambandha. It's all got to be annihilated onto the impersonal platform. So there are so many Gitas. I can remember reading one when I first got a Gita. It didn't make sense at all. After understanding the Bhagavat philosophy or the Bhagavat Dharma, they become fully spiritually conscious or Krishna conscious, and therefore their chanting and dancing is not material, but on the spiritual platform, because they're getting realization. Pratyak Shavagamam Dharmyam Susukam Kartam Avyayam. It's saying in the Bhagavad Gita, 9th chapter, 2nd verse, Raja Vijaya Raja Guyam Pavitra Mitramutama Pratyak Shavagamam Dharmyam. By direct perception, when the devotees are performing these activities of devotional service, there's a direct reciprocal awakening in the heart of sweetness and bliss, isn't it? Direct. We can taste it. It's like when you have a meal, you don't have to be told you're satisfied. You know if you're satisfied or not. Similarly, by chanting, by hearing, by performing kirtan, then these transcendental tastes will arise. Although everyone admires the ecstatic chanting and dancing of the devotees, who are therefore popularly called the Hare Krishna people, Mayavadis cannot appreciate these activities because of their poor fund of knowledge. Prabhupada is writing his purports here based on his initiation of the Hare Krishna movement. These were done in 1972, 73, 74. And at that time, under the guidance of the commander, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he was sending his students all across the planet. And it was happening. It was on fire. Many people were getting mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at that time. And they are still, like I said, now it's gone. It's completely. Why?
I think something is, network problem is there. Facebook is working.
Mayavadis cannot appreciate these activities because of their poor fund of knowledge. This is the heart of it. The heart of it is education. And we are trying to educate ourselves by reading this Caitanya Caritamrta now. This education is paramount. If you feel fully confident, then your faith will be very strong. You will have no loopholes if anyone wants to challenge you at any time. Text 43. E sava sunya prabhu hase mane mane upeksha karya karo na kaile sambasane. Translation. Hearing all this blasphemy, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu merely smiled to himself, rejected all these accusations, and did not talk with the Mayavadis. Purport. As Krishna-conscious devotees, we do not like to converse with Mayavad philosophers, simply to waste valuable time. But whenever there is an opportunity to impress our philosophy upon them with great vigor and success. But whenever there is an opportunity, we impress our philosophy upon them with great vigor and success. Text 44. Upekshakarya kaile matura gamanan matura dakiya puna kaila agaman. Translation. Thus, neglecting the blasphemy of the Varanasi Mayavadis, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu proceeded to Mathura, and after visiting Mathura, he returned to meet the situation. So we know the pastime. Mahaprabhu comes to the Jharkhanda forest. He comes to Varanasi, then he goes to the Triveni, Prayag, then he goes to Vrindavan. And now it's on his way back from Vrindavan that he meets Rupa Goswami at the Dashrameda Ghat in Varanasi first. Rupa Goswami escapes the Nawab in Bengal first, and he instructs him and his brother Anupam in all the rasa conclusions. And then from Varanasi he comes, from Prayag, where he's instructing Rupa. He sends Rupa then to Vrindavan. And then he comes to Varanasi and stays in the house of Chandrasekhar, and Tapana Mishra is also there. And that's where he meets Sanatana Goswami. And this was his second time now when he comes back. He's already been there. He's already felt the negative impression of the local sannyasis towards him. And now he's staying for 2 months this time. Before he stayed a few days. But now he's staying for 2 months to instruct Sanatana Goswami. And after this, he sends Sanatana Goswami to be with his brother in Vrindavan. But somehow they take different roads, and Rupa Goswami is coming back to Bengal and then goes to Puri, and Sanatana goes into Vrindavan alone and starts many of his works, and then he also comes to Puri, and again he misses Rupa Goswami. So the journey sequence is there. So you just read that. Thus, neglecting the blasphemy of the Varanasi Mayavadis, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu proceeded to Mathura, and after visiting Mathura, he returned to meet the situation. He wasn't done yet. He just took a break. Purport. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not talk with the Mayavadi philosophers when he first visited Varanasi, but he returned there from Mathura to convince them of the real purpose of Vedanta. Text 45. Kasite Lekhaka Sudra Shri Chandra Shekhara Tanragar Rahile Prabhu Swatantra Ishwara. This time Lord Chaitanya stayed at the house of Chandrasekhar, although he was regarded as a Sudra or Kayashta, for the Lord, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is completely independent. Purport. Lord Chaitanya stayed at the house of Chandrasekhar, a clerk, although a sannyasi is not supposed to reside in a Sudra's house. 500 years ago, especially in Bengal, it was the system that persons who were born in the families of Brahmanas were accepted as Brahmanas, and all those who took birth in other families, even the higher castes, namely the Kshatriyas and Vaishnavas, were considered Sudra, non-Brahmanas. Therefore, although Sri Chandrasekhar was a clerk from the Kayashta family in Upper India, he was considered a Sudra. Similarly, Vaishyas, especially those in the Suvarna Vanik community, were accepted as Sudras in Bengal. Even the Vaidyas, who were generally physicians, doctors, were also considered Sudras. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, however, did not accept this artificial principle which was introduced in society by self-interested men, and later the Kayashtas, Vaidyas and Vaniks all began to accept the sacred thread, despite objections from the so-called Brahmanas. This is all the work of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is on a very broad platform we're talking about. Before the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Suvarna Vanik class was condemned by Balal Sen, who was then the king of Bengal, due to a personal grudge. In Bengal, the Suvarna Vanik class are always very rich, for they are bankers and dealers in gold and silver. Therefore, Balal Sen used to borrow money from the Suvarna Vanik banker, Balal Sen's bankruptcy later obliged the Suvarna Vanik banker to stop advancing money to him, and thus Balal Sen became angry and condemned the entire Suvarna Vanik society as belonging to the Sudra community. He tried to induce the Brahmanas not to accept the Suvarna Vaniks as followers of the instructions of the Vedas under the Brahminical directions, but although some Brahmanas approved of Balal Sen's actions, others did not. Thus the Brahmanas also became divided amongst themselves, and those who supported Suvarna Vanik class were rejected from the Brahmin community. At the present day, the same biases are still being followed. But actually there's an interesting point, that Nityananda Prabhu was very merciful to these Suvarna Vanik community in Saptagram, and was there, many people were in Saptagram, these Suvarna Vaniks, and Nityananda personally, being so liberal, he melted all their hearts with the mercy of the Lord. Even one of his most famous disciples, called Udarandatta, was from this Saptagram, and he previously was a Suvarna Vanik also. And Nityananda Prabhu gave him initiation. And there's a pastime that Nityananda wanted to hold a feast at the house of Udarandatta, and he invited all the Brahmanas, because the Brahmanas had been very friendly and favorable to Nityananda. So he invited them all to the house of Udaran Thakur. And when they saw that it was Udaran Thakur who was cooking in the kitchen, all the Brahmanas got up to leave, and Nityananda, he very beautifully convinces them that actually we're not the body, we're the spirit soul, and this is my disciple and he's cooking for us. So they all accepted that. But then when they saw that actually Udaran Thakur was going to serve them himself, then they couldn't tolerate that. These were Brahmanas. This is the state 500 years ago of consciousness, very casteism. So Mahaprabhu understands this history because it glorifies Mahaprabhu, how he smashed this very strongly. And when Udaran Thakur came to do the serving, again the Brahmanas wanted to get up and leave, and Nityananda requested them to stay. And then to demonstrate Nityananda's potency, he took the serving spoon, the wooden serving spoon, and he put it in the ground, and a very beautiful tree immediately blossomed. And that tree is still there in the courtyard today of Udaran Thakur's house in Saptagram. and the Brahmanas immediately came off the bodily platform when they saw that transcendental miracle, we can say, taking place right in front of them. Then that was enough to shift their consciousness completely. So Nityananda was very merciful to these Suvaraniks. They would give him gold, and he would wear that gold, and beautiful jewelry and so on. There are many Vaishnava families in Bengal whose members, although not actually born Brahmanas, act as acharyas by initiating disciples and offering the sacred thread, as enjoined in the Vaishnava Tantras. For example, in the families of Thakur Raghunandan Acharya, Thakur Krishnadas, Navani Hoda, and Rasikananda Deva, the disciple of Shyamananda Prabhu, the sacred thread ceremony is performed as it is for the caste Goswamis, and this system has continued for the past 300 or 400 years. Accepting disciples born in Brahmin families, they are bona fide spiritual masters who have the facility to worship the Shalagram Shila, which is worshipped with the deity. As of this writing, Shalagram Shila worship has not yet been introduced in our Krishna consciousness movement, but soon it will be introduced in all our temples as an essential function of Archan Marg, deity worship. So Prabhupada's giving some history, some background here, and it amplifies the glories of Mahaprabhu, because he actually purified so much of this. And particularly now, with so many Westerners coming, who are so, but in most temples in India, the Westerners are not allowed to serve on the altars, etc. I stayed in Surabhikunj for so many years, but I went a couple of times on the altar in an emergency, but otherwise I was not considered qualified to be on the altar, and even though they didn't have a pujari. Anyway, that's just their vision. That's not the vision of Mahaprabhu. That's not what Mahaprabhu wanted. Text. So all these things are real. These things are in society. Text 46. Tapan mishrera gera bhiksha navahana sanyasira sange nahi mane nimantrana. Translation. As a matter of principle, Lord Chaitanya regularly accepted his food at the house of Tapana Mishra. He never mixed with other sannyasis, nor did he accept invitations from them. Purport. This exemplary behavior of Lord Chaitanya definitely proves that a Vaishnava sannyasi cannot accept invitations from Mayavadi sannyasis or intimately mix with them. Text 47. Sanatan Goswami Ashe Tanhai Milila Tanra Shiksha Lagi Prabhu Dumasha Rahila. Translation. When Sanatan Goswami came from Bengal, he met Lord Chaitanya at the house of Tapana Mishra, where Lord Chaitanya remained continuously for 2 months to teach him devotional service. Purport. Lord Chaitanya taught Sanatan Goswami in the line of disciplic succession. Sanatan Goswami was a very learned scholar in Sanskrit and other languages, but until instructed by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he did not write anything about Vaishnava behavior. His very famous book, Hari Bhakti Vilas, which gives directions for Vaishnava candidates, was written completely in compliance with the instructions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In the Hari Bhakti Vilas, Sri Sanatan Goswami gives definite instructions that by proper initiation by a bona fide spiritual master, one can immediately become a Brahmana. In this connection, he says, Yata kanchanantam yati kamsyam rasa vidhananta tata diksha vidhanena dvijatvam jayate nirnam. As bell metal is turned to gold when mixed with mercury in an alchemic process, so one who is properly trained and initiated by a bona fide spiritual master immediately becomes a Brahmana. Sometimes those born in Brahmana families protest this but they have no strong arguments against this principle. By the grace of Krishna and his devotee, one's life can change. This is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam by the words Jati Bandham and Sudhyanti. Jahati Bandham indicates that a living entity is conditioned by a particular type of body. The body is certainly an impediment, but one who associates with a pure devotee and follows his instructions can avoid this impediment and become a regular Brahman by initiation under his strict guidance. Why is it an impediment? Because we have all these sanskars in this, we call it our purva sanskars, in our previous births, not behaving correctly, not behaving as Brahmins. Then we have created these sanskars. Therefore we have no qualification. But once the Guru gives initiation, Sadguru gives initiation, we can be elevated completely out of that. And if you don't believe that, and we see today in many temples, Gaudiya Math, etc., they don't accept this actually at all. If I go there, I'm in this sannyas vesh, but I'm not accepted as a sannyasi at all. I'm always a Videshi. I'm always a foreigner. That's how it will always be, because of the history, because of the impressions that only a Brahmana can actually do these initiations. Only a Brahmana is qualified to spread these teachings. Sometimes these born in Brahmin families protest this, but they have no strong arguments against this principle. So in this chapter, many of these things are coming out. This is the Praman that Prabhupada is quoting. The body is certainly an impediment, but one who associates with a pure devotee and follows his instructions can avoid this impediment and become a regular Brahmana by initiation under his strict guidance. Srila Jiva Goswami states how a non-Brahmana can be turned into a Brahmana by the association of a pure devotee. Jiva Goswami is stating like that. Prabhu Vaishnave Namaha. Lord Vishnu is so powerful that he can do anything he likes. Therefore, it is not difficult for Vishnu to change the body of a devotee who is under the guidance of a pure devotee of the Lord. So the devotee himself has to be willing to accept that change also. The devotee should become detached from his previous activities, etc. If the devotee doesn't want to relinquish his previous mentality and lifestyle prior to a devotee, then it's going to be an obstruction. But when the devotee completely disregards his previous sanskars and goes forward, then he can leave all that bodily conception behind. But the devotee has to accept that also and want to leave it behind. You understand? It's not some magic thing is going to happen and all of a sudden, we've left behind that. We have to embrace the positive identity of being a Vaishnava or being a Brahman. Text 48. Tanrasikaile Saba Vaishnaveradam Bhagavata Adi Shastra Yati Yata Gudamarm. Translation. On the basis of scriptures like Srimad Bhagavatam, which reveal these confidential directions, Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu instructed Sanatana Goswami regarding all the regular activities of a devotee. Purport. In the Parampara system, the instructions taken from the bona fide spiritual master must also be based on revealed Vedic scriptures. One who is in the line of disciplic succession cannot manufacture his own way of behavior. There are many, this is what I've said, we have to leave that previous speculative, concocted mentality completely behind. If we were of that speculative mentality previously, that has to be purified. There are many so-called followers of the Vaishnava cult in the line of Caitanya Mahaprabhu who do not scrupulously follow the conclusions of the Shastras, and therefore they are considered to be apasampradaya, which means outside the sampradaya. Some of these groups are known as Aul, Baul, Karatabhaja, Nedi, Daravesh, Sani, Sahajya, Sakibeki, Smarta, Jata Goshani, Ativadi, Chodahari, and Gaudanagari. in order to follow strictly the disciplic succession of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one should not associate with these Apasampradaya communities. This whole chapter is a complete education for all who want to follow closely the teachings of Mahaprabhu. He's explaining very clearly there are many other Apasampradayas that may be in the guise of Vaishnavas. They may look like Vaishnavas, but what are their desires and what is the extent of their education? What have they understood about the precepts of Mahaprabhu? One who is not taught by a bona fide spiritual master cannot understand the Vedic literature. To emphasize this point, Lord Krishna, while instructing Arjuna, clearly said that it was because Arjuna was his devotee and confidential friend that he could understand the mystery of the Bhagavad Gita. It is to be concluded, therefore, that one who wants to understand the mystery of revealed scriptures must approach a bona fide spiritual master, hear from him very submissively, and render service unto him. Then the import of the scriptures will be revealed. It is stated in the Vedas, Svata Upanishad 6.23, Yasya Devi Para Bhaktiya Yatha Devi Tatha Guru, Tasyaite Katita Hi Artha Prakasante Mahatmanaha. The real import of the scriptures is revealed to one who has unflinching faith in both the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the spiritual master. Srila Narottam Das Thakur advises Sadhu Shastra Guru Vakya Hridaya Korya Aikya. The meaning of this instruction is that one must consider the instructions of the sadhu, the revealed scriptures, and the spiritual master in order to understand the real purpose of spiritual life. Neither a sadhu, saintly person or Vaishnava, nor a bona fide spiritual master says anything that is beyond the scope of the sanction of the revealed scriptures. Thus the statements of the revealed scriptures correspond to those of the bona fide spiritual master and saintly persons. One must therefore act with reference to these three important sources of understanding: the sadhu, scripture, and guru. These are our three guidelines. You get a complete straight line when you follow 3 points: Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. So Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada is saying repeatedly here. So, yes, we'll come to this next section tomorrow. We'll carry on tomorrow. But this is very beautiful. This is text 49. I haven't done. So I finished on text 48. So this is giving us so much direction of how to follow the teachings of Mahaprabhu. What are his precepts and how to follow? And what is the nature of society around us? What are the obstructions, or what are the criticisms? The devotee also always has to be beyond reproach. You were saying the other day, he has to be in our life beyond reproach. So to associate with these, associate means what? It doesn't just mean being with them. It means revealing your heart and mind. If you go into a group of complete Mayavadis and you think you want to make friends with them and open up your heart to them, etc., you become completely contaminated. It's not our job to do like that. We can listen to them and then put them on track, defeat them, educate them. If they don't want the education, Hare Krishna, see you later. We can't do more than that. But if we try and associate with them and give them our time and our heart moods, then we're going to be contaminated by that. There's going to be a link will happen. So we always have to be very cautious and careful there. Sri Caitanya Caritamrta Ki Jai, Ananta Koda Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol, Go Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. Vanchakalpatarupyascha, Kripa Sindhavevcha, Patitanam Pavnebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha.